It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 266. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hi.
Kodra.
Lotarogar.
Tam.
Hello.
Phelan.
Hey there.
And Grace has been sorted to the bottom of the list, and it screwed everything up.
Hello, I've been demoted, but I'm okay.
So last week we recorded a big spoiler show for part of the Shadowbringers expansion, and then we realized it was getting really late, and we recorded like a 2-hour-long show that compressed down to an hour and a half, and we still had a bunch of stuff to go. So tonight we are going to attempt to pick up where we left off, and I'm not 100% sure where we left off, but I know we had already talked about the wonderful idea of using a golem to hold a floating continent.
I believe we had hadn't we gotten to killing Vothri?
Yes, we talked about Vothri, and
we talked about us breaking.
There. We did not get to that.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to mention we missed one bit that I felt like was kind of important regarding the building of the giant golem to grab a mountain, which is to do this, you're basically going back to the Scions are going back to like all the people that you met over the course of the expansion and getting them involved. So there's this wonderful moment when all of them have showed up to help, where the dude who is in charge of building the golem is just like, who are you that you can bring all of these people together and you have all these friends?
We're clearly we're the warrior of light. I mean darkness.
So
we're the assistant to the artist Alphino.
Yes, that's exactly what you say. We are the assistant to the artist Alphino. This is also pretty relevant because there's the concept of like crowning moments in storytelling, and this was like the crowning moment for Alphino. Like him sitting there watching all of these people with whom we had forged relationships and all of it paying off in us being able to build this impossible thing, and he's just like, diplomacy works.
See, the thing that I thought was the crowning moment for Alphino actually comes a little bit earlier, because he lays into the people of Yulmore, and it's just a fantastic moment for him.
It's very cool, but it's cathartic for him, but it doesn't show like the synthesis of his ideals. It's in fact like in many ways like a rejection of the negative forms of his ideals, which is basically like what other people don't do. All that matters is what they can do for me, and so I need to forgive them for anything as long as they can support my causes. And it's a rejection of that form of diplomacy, but it's not like him achieving his ends via diplomacy and him like doing good in the world via like diplomacy, which is what I feel this is.
Man, and like I didn't get a takeaway of that. Like for me, it had absolutely nothing to do with Alphino, and just the fact that we are the continent's errand boy.
Yeah,
like, we
I
spent
didn't come out of it.
The entire length of this expansion just running errands for everyone, and now they owe us because it's a favor-based economy.
I didn't come out of it with a strong sense that Alphino played a major role in that particular piece. It was more like everybody's role all came up.
There is a like Alice sort of talks like if you do the dialogue where like you talk to everyone between quests, there's some moments where like after everyone has come together, Alice and Alphino have some interesting things to say, and like Alice is really supportive of her brother, and Alphino is just sort of shocked to see this all happen and like so beyond words at seeing it work. I really liked it for Alphino.
Yeah, there were great moments. Like I just like the moment there for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like that's kind of what this entire expansion is about. Like this is an expansion about restoring hope to an entire world of people who have flat given up and convincing them to work together again.
Well,
And
also
so this is that coming to fruition.
there's a whole undercurrent that no one is beyond redemption, and that's not entirely true, but a lot of the characters that end up playing a major role in this are people that I had largely written off early on in the expansion.
I like the underlying message this expansion story has of no one is beyond redemption, but that doesn't mean redemption absolves you of everything you've done before.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't get to just have a redemption arc and then everything's okay.
Yeah, and I think I said something to this effect last week, but there's several cases where somebody comes from Yulmore, seeking redemption for something that they had done, and there were cases where quests didn't end up in redemption, where they didn't get forgiven.
Yeah, and even the ones that did, where it did go well, there was definitely this implication that this was just the beginning of the healing process. There's a lot more work to do. You don't just, apologize and get forgiven and everything's hunky-dory. But anyway, Valkyrie turned into a sword-winged angel and we killed him. And so now there's darkness in the final zone, and we've returned darkness to the entire world, and everything's great and wonderful, and we win.
Whoops.
And then we break, because we kind of knew this was going to happen. This was very foreshadowed.
Yeah, there's that sound of glass breaking, and we double over, and yeah.
We start turning into a Light Warden.
A city here.
Yeah.
The ultimate Light Warden, presumably. The light comes back to the skies. All of our work is undone throughout the entire world. And then the Crystal Exarch shows up.
Well, no, first, no, does the Crystal Exarch show up before or after?
He shows up first.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
he and Urianger have a plan.
Of course they
didn't tell us
Right.
about. And that plan is to act like the villain, basically.
Yes.
And the Exarch's plan is to effectively pretend to be the villain and grab us and take us off into the space between worlds where,
he will absorb all of the light.
Yeah.
And then die.
Yep. Actually, yeah, it's just to absorb the light, and then he will go into the space
Yeah.
between worlds and die there.
He's... And the big thing is he's like, "Mwahaha, I have fooled you all along. I just had you do this so I could steal all of the light for myself."
Yeah, because he's actually trying to make us think it's his plan. He's going to take the light and then travel to other worlds, and no, he's not even a good liar.
Yeah,
No.
he's not very good at that.
He thinks we'll try to stop him, and this is his brilliant plan to make us not want to do that thing.
Well, so another little bit that we probably need to touch upon is when we start cracking, the only way we don't turn into a Light Warden is because Minfilia, now called Reen, somehow manages to hold back the light.
I thought that was after this, though.
No, that's immediately after we finish the fight with Vothri. We black out.
Yeah, she rushes forward to to hold the light at bay, but it's very clearly temporary and not something that it's not a permanent fix.
And then the Exarch shows up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're basically Reen's I don't know what else I can do. This isn't going to last. What can we do? And then the Exarch shows up and starts monologuing.
He's really studied to play this role of a villain.
He hasn't studied well enough.
No, well, yeah, I mean, he's incredibly melodramatic. Maybe he studied too much from, villainous play monologues.
He studied the stories of our adventures, and so villains like Gaius.
He did story MSQ a few times too many.
And is it at this point that he takes the hood off and we see who it
no.
is? It's not till later.
No,
It
because
doesn't come off until after the very next thing happens.
Yeah.
No. And so as he's doing this, and nobody really has any way of stopping him, turns out one person does, in fact, have a good way of stopping him. It's our good friend. And by good friend, I mean strongly the other thing, Emmett Selch.
Basically
Just
just
misunderstood
shoots him.
Tam.
No, he's not. Yeah, he shows up and shoots him.
Because he's a huge dick.
And then it's his turn to monologue. But he's better at it, because he really is a villain. Because it turns out that basically this was his plan the entire time. It's like, okay, I can't stop him from absorbing all the light, but it's going to be too much. He's going to turn into a monster, and then I can use him to start the cataclysm.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like it's going to work.
He's like, look, you can't control it. You're not strong enough. So, deal.
It's like, you can, do whatever for right now, but, it's going to overtake you. And when that happens, come see me in my sanctum. And then he wanders off.
Well, and then Reen manages to get it stabilized, kind of.
Yeah, temporary
Some help from
stability.
Ardbird.
Oh, other important thing that happens. He steals the Crystal Exarch, and this is the point at which we see the Crystal Exarch is our very old friend, Grahatia.
Yes. From the Crystal Tower raid quests back in Realm Reborn.
AKA the person that probably no one actually remembered their name.
I remembered him.
I remembered him.
I remembered it.
I remembered him. I didn't remember his name.
Yeah.
He's the Makode with the cool red eyes.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a Makode with a red eye.
I remembered his name because Ray obsessed over him.
But yeah, he's basically like, this guy managed to do a thing that I didn't think was possible, and it would be really useful. So I'm going to take him, and I'm going to study him, and I'm going to figure out how to do it.
And he can't be allowed to do it again.
Because he managed to not only travel between worlds, but travel back in time. And if he could do that, then none of this would matter anyway, because then Emet-Sel could just travel back in time far enough to, fix to do everything he wants before we can do anything to stop it. It'd be great.
You can fix everything.
Which doesn't.
I feel like there are certain components to how time travel appears to work in this game that makes that not possible, but
Existence was a mistake.
time travel is dumb.
It's.
The story did not make it less dumb.
Time travel complicates everything. But yeah, because in this case, it seems like we're using the time travel lets you create an alternate timeline, but maybe doesn't do away with the timeline you came from. It's hard to be sure.
Anyway, this Grahati is from an alternate future.
Yep, where everything went, where the cataclysm happened, and we died, and everything is bad, terrible forever.
And they somehow took pieces of Omega and Alexander and other bits of things and turned the Crystal Tower into a time machine.
Yep. Yeah, basically, like, Biggs's great-grandson, I think,
Yeah.
ends up the CEO of the Ironworks and, like, oversees this brilliant plan to use what they can get their hands on to send the Crystal Tower through time and space. Like, literally, their plan is to turn the Crystal Tower into a TARDIS. But, I mean, it worked.
And, like, Grahati is the only one who could execute it because he is of ancient Allegan, like, lineage.
Why he had the weird red eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, because back at the end of the Crystal Tower raid series, he, like, fully embraced his Allegan heritage and ended up, like, going into the tower and sealing it to await, when he would be needed.
So, yes, we know that he's not actually a jerk.
But yeah, so Emet-Sel takes him and leaves, and then we pass out and wake up back in our in-room.
So, I kind of want to take a bit of time to talk about how, at this point, I'm not really a big fan of Ascians as villains, or was not at this point, and I was kind of, like, running out of patience with the storytellers. Because Ascians, from, like, a Realm Reborn up until this point, felt incredibly inscrutable and just this big, ominous threat that we didn't really have good tools to deal with. And, like, their motivations were always shrouded in mystery. They just felt like this big evil presence that we did not have any understanding of, like, why we were fighting them, other than, like, fighting them is the only thing that staves off, like, them doing world-ending bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but until this expansion, like, it wasn't clear beyond we want to wake Zodiark up. It wasn't clear why we wanted to end the world.
Why? Why do you want to end the world? Like, what is your motivations? Because, and that was always very frustrating for me, and I was, like, sort of running out of patience with it. Like, in the, like, lead up to this, every time an Ascian was on screen, I was like, oh, I have to deal, like, I am so much more interested in fighting the Emperor right now. I don't want to fight these Asian monsters that don't seem to make any sense.
Oh, that reminds me. There's like a thing that's been going on the entire expansion that we didn't mention at all, which is back in the source.
Buddy cop.
Since we're gone, Tataru had to hire somebody else to do our job, and the dude she hired is Estinian. And so he and Gaius are like invading the Empire to try and find the Black Rose and stop it.
Broody
Like-
B Squad.
The two people who we would probably be like, please don't pick these two.
Literally
Literally
anybody
anyone.
else.
It's like,
Because really, why would you want a half-rate fake Azure Dragoon on your team? Still keeping the beef alive. But yeah.
I mean, Estinian does go on the list of people who have fought you and isn't dead, so
yep.
there's that at least.
Yeah, it's the two people who. It's two of the very short list of people who have fought you and aren't dead.
Like, and we have seen him murder a like massive artillery emplacement, and that was pretty impressive.
Kodra will never give him the satisfaction.
Sure won't. He's a hack and he knows it.
But yeah,
But-
so we wake up back in our in room, like not feeling great,
Yeah, no, it's a bad feeling.
and like the next few quests are basically like kind of
Just
Like,
twisting
you're-
the knife.
yeah, you're like there's nothing we can do. Like what now? And just trying to figure out what possible options there are.
And you find
Well-
out, you also find out that people, like the other people in charge, are keeping the whole thing quiet. That you're like
The reason why
this
the
is all a
world is-
problem.
Well, the reason why the entire world is now bathed in light again.
Yeah,
Like, all of your hard work is undone in a moment. It sucks. It's not a good feeling.
And so like there's a decent bit of like wandering around the Crystarium talking to people, and by the end you mostly it's like you realize that you gave these people hope again. Like, yes, the stars have vanished again, but seeing them even for that short period like made a difference. And then also you find out that despite your best efforts, literally everybody knows you're the Warrior of Darkness.
Despite
I
your
mean,
best effort. It's
let's-
not like we were really all that slick.
They weren't
Look,
very good
yeah.
efforts.
let's be fair. Yeah, our best efforts in this case are not actually great.
Our best efforts consisted of not explicitly telling people, "Hey, I'm the Warrior of Darkness."
Yeah, the one lady is even comments on it. She's like, look, you went to a place and then the darkness came. What did you think people would
And
think?
then you went to someplace else and the darkness came.
It's like this kept happening. After the first 2 or 3, we started to notice a pattern.
Yes, we're not idiots. It's almost like we can put 2 and 2 together.
And so it's very much the people in the Crystarium returning the favor that you did to them. Like, you spent the entire expansion returning hope to them, and now it's their turn.
Which manages to still be heartbreaking. You do get shouted at by your favorite branch.
She is perpetually mad that you never think to call her.
It's true.
Basically every mother ever.
Farrell is also pretty much like, what, you're just gonna take it? Like, really? Come on. You're gonna make me look bad by just rolling over? Come on. Like, wow, alright. It's a Faye pep talk.
So you figure, well, I guess I need to go find Emmett Selk and kick his ass until he fixes this? I don't know.
Whatever.
Well,
I mean,
you don't
it's really just
have
the
an
first part.
exit plan.
You don't.
Yeah.
Basically,
You're-
your plan is, like, try and take him with me, maybe. I don't know.
Or at least get Grahatia out of there.
Yeah, that too. Rescue Gratia. It's like, maybe if you can at least do that before you die. So the Asians don't like the light. Like, it is anathema to them. So he needs to be somewhere dark where the light doesn't go. This is a world bathed entirely in light. Like, where would be dark?
Some place where we get to by having more incredibly bad ideas.
Shockingly bad ideas. Shockingly bad ideas that we get called on.
Yeah.
Repeatedly.
We need to find a way to go down into this trench at the bottom of the ocean.
It's time to go to the bottom of the sea.
I have Under the Sea stuck in my head now.
So earlier in the expansion, when I was flying around Ilmeg, I noticed there
An
was
island?
this island.
Lakeland, you mean?
Lakeland, yeah, sorry,
Lakeland.
Lakeland.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this island, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go investigate this. So I swam over, and just underneath the waterline was what was very clearly a shut eye.
It's called the Isle of Kin, and it's incredibly suspiciously symmetrical.
It's absolutely a whale. Like, it's a whale that's sleeping. And I knew
Not
at some
just any
point,
whale.
it's Bismarck!
Yep, there's a Bismarck here too.
I love Bismarck.
Big sky whale.
This one can also fly.
Why is it a sky whale? I don't know.
But it doesn't need islands. This one doesn't need islands.
Instead,
Right
he makes
now.
giant bubbles.
So here's the entire thing that I thought of, like, about what's about to happen. So Bismarck basically goes down to the bottom of the ocean and blows out a giant bubble, and then we're now in it. Wouldn't that stink like hell?
Yeah.
Wouldn't
yeah,
whale
Yeah.
breath
They-
stink
Yes.
badly?
But after a few minutes, you'd stop noticing it.
Yeah, your brain would shut off in self-defense. Just be like, nope, you can't smell anything anymore. We're done.
I mean, and to be fair, the bottom of the ocean would also just smell really bad
Yes.
if
Yeah.
you just put a bunch of air right there. So, yeah, brain is probably just checking out on the whole sense of smell thing.
'Cause, I mean, like, basically the entire ocean floor is just decaying matter, right?
Pretty much.
Plus all the things that died when, the water got taken away.
And it doesn't seem to affect anything that we took all the water away. It's like these things that used to swim can just now fly, and that's a thing
So-
that happens.
Some things are mad that they can't swim.
Yeah.
It's true.
Some things are trying to have their babies and having issues because they can't swim.
It's true.
So-
Before we get there, we have to remember that this whale is a Fey whale. And Urianger tries to talk in Fey to the Fey whale because he spent a bunch of time with them. And the whale, much to its credit, goes, how about you fuck off? How about no, I'm not helping you. Get bent.
It's like, I'm sleeping, go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we remember to do a thing.
We
So-
we have the ruler of the Fae as our, I guess we're their bound servant. I don't know how this whole thing works.
They're really insistent that they're our bound servant.
Sure.
They
Don't-
say this thing, yes.
Right, yes. That's why I say it's pretty questionable. We don't make great decisions.
That's not usually how Fae relations work.
I mean, admittedly, Faye do work on, like, deals and favors, and we sort of kind of did her a huge favor, although it was kind of her doing us a huge favor, so I don't even know.
Yeah,
I mean-
they're fantastic, and they don't I truly believe that they think that they are bound to us.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so they were kind of bound to us from the start, from the jump, and then because that's like the story at the start, and then we made them the queen of the Fae,
King.
king
King.
of the Fae, yeah.
But that was them doing us a favor, saving us from having to become king of the Fae. So I
I
don't know,
mean-
like, how that balances exactly.
Sure, but I think they were happy to be king of the Fae.
Well, yeah. Like, I don't think they're sad about it.
It's also hard to tell how much was their plan all along.
That too.
I don't necessarily get the sense. I mean, I get the sense that the Fae do not do a lot of long-term planning.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of not their thing, but also Faeul is not like most of the other Fae.
Yeah, they've been hanging out outside Ilmeg for quite a long time and have clearly interacted with mortals a lot more than any of the other Fae. But yeah, so now we're at the bottom of the sea, where it stinks, and there's fish.
And we meet the
Not
Sahagin that basically Alphino had been dealing with.
The Ondo. Yeah, Alphino's original plan to get into Yulmore involved trading fruit to the Ondo in exchange for pearls.
Which was not a bad idea.
No, but then a random dude stole the idea, and Alphino ended up letting him keep it because he felt bad for him. Didn't go too well for him, though.
No.
But yeah, so we show up in their, in their main city or whatever you want to call it, which is like surrounded by these ancient ruins that look kind of like skyscrapers a little bit. Like they got kind of an Art Deco thing going on.
They're weird.
And basically, they worship the ancients, and they believe the ancients are expecting someone. And if that's us, then cool, yeah, we're totally buds, and everything's fine, and they'll help us.
Which is shockingly similar to our relationship with Vieira so far.
Pretty,
Is
yeah.
that we convinced them that we're the harbingers of the ancients.
Although in this case, they're 100% correct. There is one ancient, and he is expecting us. Because it turns out the ancients that they worship are what the Asians were before the whole Zodiac thing happened. And sure enough, Emmett Selk is apparently back and, switched on the lights and, has things running again.
But before we do that, we have to, as Grace alluded to earlier, help the Queen of the Ondo figure out how to deliver the new brood of Ondo without water.
So we
This
had
is
really bad
technically
timing
a
with
side
this.
quest.
It is,
But
it's
they
an important side
they
quest.
know you do this side quest because they stick the ether current on the first step of it.
Yep. But
It definitely
does involve-
leaves off that quest with a cliffhanger, so probably you continued.
Yep.
Yep.
I actually didn't do this quest. I'm curious how it ended.
I mean, you help make sure that the brood mother of the Sahagin can have her clutch, and do that by being friends with other people and having them explain how people who don't live underwater all the time have babies. This was not a thing I expected to be
No.
doing that day, but
Yeah.
whatever. It was cool.
It's, it worked. But yeah, one of the Ondo has a friend, has a human friend up on the land that has a small child, and maybe she can help. And so, yeah, you go to her for advice.
Which was just a funny sequence of quests. But also, the main story quest involves you, going off and exploring a lot of the ruins to try and figure out how to get to whatever area is down under the ocean. And then during that quest, you find out that, the ancients have turned on the lights in the deep, and they're over here. And you go there, and there is a giant city underwater.
It's massive.
Someone has done more reminiscing than is actually healthy.
Well, and you also
Facts.
notice that these buildings look a lot like the painting that you saw with of Zodiark and the city and Heidelin. But you also kind of know that didn't happen on the first, so something's fishy.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's this entire city of massive, tall Art Deco skyscrapers with sort of ethereal cloaked figures wandering around it.
That all have masks that look like the one dude that helped us briefly that I can't ever remember the name of.
Oh, from the
Yeah.
from the Warring Triad.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name too.
Unukalhai?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, however you say that word. And when they talk, they kind of sound like the adults in Snoopy.
Yeah.
Wah 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 wah.
And they all think you're a child because you're much smaller than them.
Clearly, that's how
And you
that
don't-
works.
And you don't have very much ethereal energy, comparatively speaking. At least compared to them.
It's all this very weird thing because we find out very quickly that this is all a manifestation of the city of the Asians by Emmett Selk to sort of show you what things used to be and sort of show you how great things were and how everything has been ruined and how we need to let everyone die, including ourselves, so that we can return to this glory. Or
Yeah,
like,
it's like-
and
But
the
he
thing-
didn't really do this for you.
Yeah,
He did this
is
because
just-
he's been doing way more reminiscing than anyone should.
yes.
Well,
true.
and the thing is you find this out in part because as you're talking to people, they can only go so far in a conversation before they reset, basically.
Well, except for one person.
Except for one person.
Who we find out
Who you meet at the
was-
DMZ.
You meet at the DMZ, and this was one of Emmett Selch's very close friends. And the comment was, it's he realizes
Wait,
that
DMC or DMV?
DMV.
Sorry, DMV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
it's a different thing.
realizes that all of this is fake, that this is a projection, And when asked like how he's able to do this, he's like, "Oh, well, I was very smart. I was very close to Emmett Selch, and if I am a product of Emmett Selch, he would know that I would be smart enough to realize what's going on, and therefore I am." It's very
suggests
cute.
a problem with, because you get to see a lot of like what this place Amarat was actually like, and it's an entire society where people can create whatever they want with the power of their minds, like trivially.
Yeah. Basically, the whole like summoning that Asians have been teaching people, like that's just what they do to create anything they want. Is they just like make it out of nothingness, like just create it out of pure ether.
And there's a sort of interesting quest that's talking about this to some extent. That's like, hey, basically you run into somebody who looks at you and is like, wow, you are way too ostentatiously dressed. Like, that's uncouth, even for a child. And you're like, what are you talking about? He's like, you should make yourself a better robe. But also like they figure it's kind of hard for you to do this, so they give you crystallized ether to, help you out, like a pacifier. You get
it's a lightning shard.
You get a lightning shard, which is the stuff that not only what tailors are using to make stuff, but also the core components that are used in crafting throughout the entire rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because Emmett Selch has not actually lied to you that everything that goes on in the greater world at this point is just like a shadow of what the ancient Asians were capable of, ancient Emerocians. And so, yeah, you get this, like, for people who aren't very good at this, have a helper crystal.
I also know you probably did this quest because they stuck an ether current on it.
Yeah. And
you don't have to, technically.
I like to fly in places. Especially this zone.
You also hear about a lot of little ways in which this can go wrong. Like, it'll be somebody who's like, I was making a lion, but then I thought of a bird by accident because one landed on the perch, and look at this crazy thing I made. And it's like a chimera, and you're like, wait a second.
This is how he got griffins.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is a griffin. Great. We're just gonna come up with stuff.
See no problem with this. Cough.
This is why Final Fantasy XIV Tarantula Hawks look the way they do. because somebody told an Amarocian at one point, hey, did you hear about these things called tarantula hawks? And he was like, a tarantula hawk? Imagined it, and now we have tarantula hawks, and it's terrible.
I mean, the ones in game are not that different from the ones in real life.
It's true.
They're just bigger. That is just an awful insect thing.
I know.
That's what it is.
But yeah, so we get to see what Amarat was like. And then we get to see what Amarat was like when it was getting destroyed.
Yeah, you finally do catch up with Emmett Selch, and he's kind of fraying at the edges a little bit, because he expected you to come down when you were a lot closer, and
also alone.
And
you
also
weren't supposed
alone.
to bring friends.
Yeah, like, and it's one of the only times where you see his like aloof, dismissive, arrogant facade break, and he gets legitimately angry.
Yeah.
Or at least shows it. And he's like, look, you think you understand? You don't. You want to understand? Come. I'll recreate the end, and you can see what it was like, and what we're trying to fight back against, and what your goddess Heidelin ruined for everybody.
I feel like that's a bit of misplaced blame there, since this was before any of that happened.
It's true.
Well, but if not for Heidelin, they would have... Because I believe he's explained by this point what they were going to do that the creation of Heidelin stopped, which was basically a new world had been formed. They fed half of the Amarocian people, or well, half of a subset or something. It's kind of unclear, to Zodiark to stop the end. And then like a new world was created, and there was new life on this world. So like, oh, great. We can let that new life grow until there's enough of it, and then we can feed that to Zodiark and bring back all the people that we fed to him.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the people that created Heidelin were like, no, that's awful. Like this is the new life, and if it replaces us, so be it.
Yeah. And that's basically what the Asians have been wanting to do, is sacrifice all of these people to Zodiark in this hope that they can go back and get the old world back.
And there was a council of them. 13 of them seemed to be on board, and one person was not.
And this is the other thing that you hear from Emmett Selch's friend, who is the only other being able to sense Ardbert.
Who realizes that and makes a comment that us, the player character, and Ardbert have the exact same energy.
Yeah, we have the same color of ether, which is how we have differentiated people, and in fact, how Y'shtola has been differentiating people all this time, is by the color of their ether.
That makes you wonder why Y'shtola couldn't see Ardbert.
Wasn't as strong as that guy.
Well,
I mean, by that point, we were so suffused with light, I would bet that kind of overpowered anything else.
Oh, yeah. Because
That's
even
fair.
from the very first moment Y'shtola saw us, we were so suffused with light she didn't recognize us.
Yeah, she immediately
Right, we
thought
had
were a
already
sin eater.
cleared. We had already cleared 2 zones at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this guy's like, yeah, whatever. Who's your friend? Oh, it's you. And the way he puts it is like, it's a little weird that part of you is floating over there.
Mhm.
And Ardbert's like, wait, what? You what?
well, and also makes a comment that he recognizes us,
Yeah.
which means
He recognizes us and also knows we're not the same person. Like, his sign-off is great, because he's like, it was good to speak with you, old new friend. Or new
Well,
old friend.
he's also like, I have to assume Emmett Selch also knows who you are.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and this is where I'm like, okay, now I'm finally getting to see where the Asians are, and oh my goodness, now this all makes sense. We're ancient Amarosians that have been shattered, like everyone else, across all of these different stars.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a whole sequence of events that happens during one of the quests where they talk about how the council originally had 14 members.
Yup.
And one person didn't
Dissented.
agree with what was happening and left the council. And I think we're all pretty certain that we're the 14th member of that council.
It seems
Uh-huh.
likely.
Probably.
We're the person who left the council, and probably also the person who ultimately brought about the summoning of Heidelin.
It also exposes, at this point, how the Asian hierarchy works. Because Emmett Selch is an unbroken Asian, but there's not that many of them.
There's
And-
4. Well, at this point, there's 2.
Yeah,
Well,
Killed
there
2.
were 4, now there's 2.
Are there? There were 4? I thought there were only 3.
I believe La Habrea and not Nabrialis.
I thought it was
the other one.
Elidibus.
Igiorum.
Elidibus is the one that's still around.
Elidibus, it's Eorum, La Habrea, Emmett Selch, and Elidibus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know about Igaeorum.
Yeah.
And do not remember which one that is.
Oh,
That's
the
the
one
one-
we murdered at the end of Heaven's Ward.
Oh, okay.
That's the one that fused with La Habrea and they
Oh,
turned
we
into
murdered
Asian Prime.
both of those.
Yeah.
I mean, we murdered one and Thordan murdered the other.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow.
And other Asians at different levels of the hierarchy are just less complete.
Because they're shattered across worlds.
Yeah. And they can reforge, kind of, but they haven't fully. We, on the other hand, have been made slightly more Asian with each rejoining.
And well,
At this point, presumably, we've got 7. We've got a full half of ourself at this point because there have been 6 cataclysms. Or
Yeah. 7 guys.
7.
and this is also sort of their way of explaining why we are so darn tough. And
Yeah,
now
we're-
it starts to make more sense.
We are stupidly powerful, comparatively speaking.
It's kind of make you wonder why La Habrea was such a jump, though. Other than him being an academic.
I mean, we used the super secret weapon. Didn't we use the super secret weapon on him?
Nope.
No, that was Thordan that killed him.
Yeah, he got eaten by Thordan.
I mostly mean prior to that, all of that, while he was possessing
Yeah.
Thancred.
It might be commentary on Thancred. Oh, snap.
I think there actually is a line trying to handwave that a little bit, saying like him jumping around bodies left him weaker or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that
Emmett
is-
Selch
Emmett
does
Selch
say
makes
that, like,
copy.
Emmett Selch is just like, look, I don't jump around bodies because A, I think it's crass, and B, it weakens me, unlike that chump La Brea.
Well,
He
there's
thought it
also
was
the fact that ever since they lost the 13th, they explicitly do not bring their full power to bear in any of the shards.
Yeah.
Well, there's the whole thing where, he figured out a way to build himself a series of clones to inhabit.
This is also kind of a backhanded explanation of why everyone treats it like we kill all of the primals by ourselves.
Which I love. I had never asked for an explanation for that, but you constantly have this like, you went in there alone and came out, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I went in there with like 7 of my closest. Wait. Oh.
Yes, because when you are fighting with the 7 other aspects of yourself.
We're all connected, which I think is super neat. I think that's a super neat take.
Right. I mean, because like we haven't quite gotten there, but we eventually get to a showdown with Emmett Selch, and the whole setup to this showdown is that Grahatia is going to summon other warriors of light from other realities, and through these portals that he's created, the other members of your raid party come through.
So it's like
this
that's where
great
the other 7 come
moment.
from.
But on the way up there, you go through Amarat, the end.
Yeah, and it is on fire.
It is egregiously on fire.
It is on fire and it's being attacked by ridiculous nightmare beasts. Like,
And-
maybe this whole creation magic thing got a little out of hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what happens when people who can create anything they think of start having nightmares
Yeah.
and being afraid of the end of the world?
Maybe it's not actually a great thing to have that much power. Turns out. And like, it's a really good argument that nobody ever should, which I think is really interesting. It has some truly, truly nightmare fuel mobs in there as you watch the end of the world happen. And a breathtaking view from orbit that makes me think of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And you get through all of that. You pass Emmett Selch's test. He predictably is still not satisfied and is like, yeah, well, I'm unimpressed. We're done here. Try dying of light. And that almost happens.
Because, yes, he wants you to die of light.
Yeah, he wants you to be stressed so that you lose control and...
trigger the cataclysm that he needs.
Yep.
Because that's all he wants.
And there's like this whole sequence plays out in a very Guardians of the Galaxy movie way, where apparently the fact that we are 8/12ths of a, or 8/14ths of a person allows us to hold a certain amount of light. But when we, consumed Vothri, it reached the point where it was just too much. But you know what would help? If we were 9/14ths of a person. And like when this is all going out, I remember the scene in Guardians of the Galaxy where like no one of them can hold one of the Infinity Stones, but all together they can hold an Infinity Stone. So basically Ardbert lends us his strength.
This
Ardbert
is
is
why
like-
Ardbert wasn't allowed to rest.
And he gets it. He's like, oh, this is what I'm here for. This is why. And I love his line. His voice acting is so good through this whole thing. And I love if you could take another step, would you still fight?
Also, amazing music starts playing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the trailer music.
Yeah, this is
Right.
a cool
It's so
scene
good.
from the trailer.
Yeah, because as much as this expansion was about restoring hope to an entire world full of people who had given up, it's also about restoring hope to one person, because Ardbert had completely and utterly given up.
And now he can save his own world. Like centuries after his death. Or a century after his death.
This happens after you beat Emmett Selch, right?
No, this is before the
it's
fight.
Before.
This part is before, yeah.
This is the lead up to the fight.
Right.
Because he joins with you, you explode with light that you can now control because you're that much stronger. Because he stops Reen from trying to rebalance you, and then you don't need it because now Ardbert is a part of you. Emmett Selch tries to look at you through the blinding light and see something that he's horrified by.
Also, like, They do play up this whole Warrior of Darkness thing, but we have sort of been the Warrior of Light the whole time. We are still Heidelin's champion.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Warrior of Darkness is a legendary figure that we filled the role of.
Heidelin's our champion.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's very funny because there was a lot of speculations, like, what is the player character? And my favorite theory was, oh yeah, we are the primal that is summoned by Heidelin to do her bidding.
Nope.
No.
So close.
Other way around.
Heidelin is the uber primal that we summon, because that's just what we do.
I wonder if there are any implications for that. I'm sure the future patch storylines won't go into that at all.
Or the same patch story.
Fair.
So at this point, Emmett Selk he's had enough. Like, to hell with all of this. He puts on his mask and unveils his true self as Hades. And this is when Grahatia opens up portals to other worlds, to other shards for 7 other Warriors of Light, so that we can have 8 people to fight in this trial. And so we fight him.
I am so glad, incidentally, that fight was not Shinryu tier punishing.
God,
Yeah.
yes.
Because, wow. I went into it and I'm like, oh boy, okay, I remember Shinryu. This is going to be a thing. And
Yep.
it's not an easy fight, but it's not going to just,
It's
trash
not
you
unreasonable.
repeatedly.
The other thing
Also, it has a checkpoint.
it has a checkpoint.
It
I was going to
does.
say that
That's
was
too.
important.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is it's mostly pay attention to all the things that you had to pay attention to during this expansion.
I mean, it would help if you know what Earthshaker markers are, which they keep using and people keep not knowing what they are.
Yeah.
They clearly need to have a dungeon boss with Earthshakers.
It's
Again,
true, because I don't know if there is one.
I can't think of one offhand.
I can think of lots of trials.
Yeah, but they're all optional.
Oh, except this
no,
guy.
because Shinryu is not optional.
I mean, Shinryu is not optional, but it's the only one that does. It's the only one I can think of before Hades that has them, and is not optional.
But also, you don't mostly do Shinryu or Hades on repeat.
Yeah,
Whereas you do dungeon, it should be in an expert roulette dungeon so that people can get very familiar with it.
Saint Lucien's Hard has Earthshakers.
Okay. That was Expert Roulette for End of Stormblood, right?
Yes.
yeah.
That was the second boss.
Okay. People ought to remember how that works then. Although probably a lot of people weren't playing at that point and just completely missed that dungeon entirely.
Yeah, it's possible. It was fairly late in the cycle.
But yeah, you fight Emmett Selch after he seems to have defeated your Scion friends.
And once you defeat him, you send a giant Ardbert axe-shaped beam of light through him.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah, the light being formed into Ardbert's weapon was a nice touch.
Because they bring the Chekhov's white aetherite that's been sitting
Yep.
around forever.
Because Urianger showed it off to you almost
7 levels ago.
Yeah, almost immediately after showing up. It's
Uh-huh.
like, oh yeah, I made one of these since I figured we'll probably need it eventually.
And then I was like, oh, and Emmett Selch is going to start following us around? Good thing I have this in my pocket.
And he does, what's the word I'm looking for? He does, it does come out, but Hades
It's
is
shattered.
real strong. And you realize, at this point, that it wouldn't have been enough. But that's cool. You've got friends.
And all of this light that you spent the entire expansion absorbing, and now you can control it. And you know what Asians don't like?
A
They don't
whole
like
lot of
light.
light. Giant axe-shaped beams of light.
I see that.
So in one fell swoop, you flat kill Emmett Selk and save
And to
yourself.
solve your excess light problem.
Emmett Selch, as he is dying, has a great line where he's like, promise you'll remember us.
Yeah, remember that we lived.
I will. I remember that you lived and that you messed things up for everyone. So, I'll be watching out for that in the future.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is to some extent, I find Emmett Selch a sympathetic villain.
Oh, I completely understand why.
I know why he's doing this, and if I were in his shoes,
I just don't agree with him in any way, at all.
I'm not 100% sure I wouldn't do something similar.
I mean, it reminded me a lot of Tactics Advance. The whole thing, you're in this world, and it's not the real world. So you've got to bring the real world back.
So, I mean, I'm going to bring a Walking Dead reference.
Yeah, but I also think March is a villain.
Yes.
I think you are a villain protagonist in that game.
So, in Walking Dead, late in the comic and late in the series, you're introduced to this villain of Negan. And Negan is the ultimate baddie. But after a while, you realize we only view Negan as a bad guy because we weren't with Negan from the start. Like, he's not doing anything different than the party we had been following all along somewhat regularly does. So, I don't know, like, I feel like in another context, Emmett Selch wouldn't be the villain.
Yeah, like he lost everything and everyone he knew, and he will do anything to bring them back. I can understand that.
But also, what he wants is completely incompatible with our existence. So, nope, he doesn't.
Well, and he wants to do a genocide.
Right. That's what it would take to bring it all back. That's the problem. Like, if there was a way to restore Amarat that did not entail the destruction of our own world, yeah, sure,
we'd help him.
But the existence of
would,
Amarat is like truly incompatible with the existence of the rest of the life. I mean, we can't afford a world where creation is that easy. Like, they would be grossly... Like, they would just outmatch anything that ever came up against them.
Yeah, they can't actually... Like, that amount of power shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, and I think ultimately that's why Heidelin's thing is what it is, because as the 14th that dissented, I think we probably realized nobody should have that level of power.
Yeah.
So Heidelin's special thing is that it splits things power. And honestly, like, it makes me somewhat concerned about the future because we're now suddenly becoming way more powerful than we ever should have been.
Yeah, we shouldn't be this powerful, but we are.
Yeah, in the short term, it's good that we are because, there are these beings floating around that are even more
still
powerful
want to
than
do a
that.
genocide.
Yeah, like there's still one of them left. We're going to have to deal with him. But once that's dealt with, yeah.
Are we going to be around long enough to see ourselves become the villain?
I mean, maybe. It does seem like we're running out of major threats, though.
We still have a lot more worlds.
I have some amount of confidence in their ability to write us more.
It's true.
Without having to make currently good guys villains.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
I mean, maybe one of these days we'll actually figure out something that we could do to restore the 13th. Or at least begin the process.
I mean, I think at some point we will end up on the 13th.
We've been there already.
Well, yes, other than through a 20-person raid or whatever.
Look, the Crystal Tower can do all sorts of things.
Especially now.
We now have the best version of the Crystal Tower. It's Magitech.
Yeah, so at this point, that's the end of the main story. Like, we've defeated Emmett Selk, we've saved ourselves, we've saved Grahatia. He doesn't have to die after all, like he had, assumed that he would. Like, he was also running on the assumption that preventing his future would result in his, ceasing to exist in any case, but apparently that's not how it works, so...
We also get
Timey-wimey stuff.
We get to reunite Ardbert with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
I do like at the end, he's in his not jet black dyed armor and his axe is all clean again and he's clean shaven and looks happy.
Yeah, he looks like the Ardbert that you see in the various role quest flashbacks.
Which incidentally are great. You also get, at the end of all of this, your final class quest, which for every class, or at least every class I've done so far, is kind of a hey, you've been gone for a while, let's check in on your old class quest friends. With one notable exception that I feel like I want to talk about here because it's real weird and kind of out of place.
Which one is that?
The Summoner one?
Summoner. The final Summoner quest is not a main story quest for some reason. But you go back to, for the Summoner final class quest story, you go back to Ymitra, Y'shtola's sister, who is Bad Ideas Cat and has encouraged you to do all kinds of very bad ideas as a summoner. And she, to her, the first thing is she's like, I haven't seen Y'shtola in a while. I hope she's okay. I heard something bad happened. And you can be like, yeah, she's fine-ish. And then you go check in on the summoners you've been training. Which quickly becomes, hey, you go and like check on one of the summoners and they're like, oh yeah, we've been getting some help from some other people like you. And so you go talk to them instead of like talking to more summoners or doing any other summoner stuff. So that you can go find out that in your absence, they need people who can't be tempered to fight primals.
Oh.
You've met 2 of them. One of them is a somewhat forgettable Rogadin, who's like, chilling out with the Scions and is pretty upstanding and so on.
And
the other one,
should remember his name.
He's a Highlander.
Oh, he's a Highlander?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's huge.
He is huge.
And the other one is Fordola. So you go visit Fordola in prison, where she's been... you talk to him, and he's like, oh yeah, it's been me and also Fordola who's been, frankly, carrying most of the load. And you're like, pardon? What were these words you just said to me? And so you go chat with her, and she's like, yeah, I mean, I fight because it sucks to not. Also, I don't hate you any less, but it does feel kind of decent to, like, actually help out in a meaningful way. Also, shut up, go away. And also, part of the reason you go talk to her in prison is because Highlander dude is working real hard to compete with what's his name from Raktika Greatwood for worst idea crush ever. But you get a bunch of, hey, these people who can't be tempered are doing a bunch of fighting for you while you're gone. And they're pretty good at it. You're like raising the next generation, and also the next generation involves Fordola, which is a problem in and of itself, but whatever, it's fine. But it struck me
it'll be fine.
It struck me as super weird that this was like the summoner class story. Because those are not insignificant characters.
Yeah.
No. That's, yeah.
And none of the other... I've played through like 5 class quest stories at this point, and none of them... All of them have been great. Scholar is fantastic. I love it.
Scholar is wonderful.
It's like wonderful and heartwarming, and it's everything I could have hoped for. But also, like, Summoner was weird and surprising to have that bit of story delivered in that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first time that they've used a job quest to deliver, like, payoff for old stories. Like, the entire Alchemist job quest line in Stormblood was basically finding out, like, dealing with the loose threads related to Minfilia's dad's death. Or, well, I don't think they ever got married. But it's all, like, it's bringing back all these characters from 1.0 and dealing with some stuff that happened the day that Thancred let a Gubu loose in Ulta.
Good job, Thancred.
Yeah. But and much like that, if I played through that and I was like, this is really interesting, and I feel like anybody that actually played in 1.0 that isn't an alchemist would be kind of disappointed that this is like over here.
It's definitely a little weird with they stick in class storylines somehow. Sometimes.
Yes.
The monk one is catching you up on your old quest giver, but also you get to find out that you find out during the Stormblood quest that he is actually the lost heir to the for the Alamegans.
Oh, huh.
Oh, is this is name
Peter
starts with
Gelt?
W? Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy, the guy that initially tried to kill you.
Yes, the guy that tried to kill you in the 30 to 50 quests.
For the Black Mage, you show up in court.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Don't be a black mage.
I mean, the end result is that he ends up working with Lise to train like a new generation of monks.
That's cool. See, the Bard one's mostly just about writing a new song.
But all of those are about writing songs. Although,
actually haven't
interestingly,
done the Dragoon
the Stormblood Bard one is also about the lost heir of Alamrigo.
Mm-hmm.
And how the
How
guy
is
you're talking to isn't actually him.
Oops. How is the Wandering Minstreler not in the Bard quest line, I wonder? Because that seems like a natural fit.
And yet it never comes up.
He's his own thing.
He has his own thing. He's also hanging out in the Crystarium, and you're like, wait, you?
No, that's the minstreling wanderer. He's completely different.
Not the same as the Wandering Minstrel. Like how Grenalt and Geralt are different people.
Yeah, Grenalt has hair.
And is under the ocean. And doesn't make you weapons, makes you armor.
He also makes you weapons.
Well, technically, yes.
And I'm sure he's going to make us more weapons in the future.
Yeah.
Probably. But in the meantime, to catch us up before we run overly long, while you're, getting some much deserved R&R and checking in at home, Reen has a plan.
Ooh, before we get to this, I do want to say that this does have my favorite thing. It ends its credits with, or ends its last scene.
Yes.
Where there's a little kid who's like, "Hey, you're the warrior of darkness, aren't you? What's your secret? How do you become so powerful?" And you just sort of bend over and put your fingers to your lips. I love it.
That's a
There's also
great
a bit
shot.
where you get a bit of an epilogue for the Gaius Estenian thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also a thing.
That's,
yeah.
That's part of
We
why I
were
brought that
gearing
up
up
back then,
to-
because a thing happens.
Yeah, we were gearing up to fight the Garlean Emperor, because he's a big problem. He's going to murder a lot of
Really?
people with Black Rose and, start a war and stuff.
Also, he looks suspiciously like Golbez.
Mhm.
So, there's no way we're not going to get to fight him, right?
Also, the corpse of his son is possessed by Elidibus, so there's that.
Yeah, that's also not great. But turns out said son is
He's been doing some possession of his own.
all of the etheric manipulation that has gone into that guy enabled him to possess a bunch of other things, has let Xenos, grab some random dude and has been walking around murdering people as that guy, deciding that what he actually wants is to get his old body back, because he was rather attached to it.
And then come after us, because he's finally got an opponent that's worth it.
Yes. And he is of the opinion, having scared Elidibus away, which is concerning by itself, he's of the opinion that this whole stupid war is just getting in his way. He does not want his amazing opponent to get just randomly ganked in a war zone. And certainly doesn't want some messed up poison to kill them, because then he wouldn't get the fight that he wants. And he's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that doesn't happen, including murdering the Empire and taking over. So good news, the war efforts from the Garleans are probably going to slow down.
We're not going to have to fight the Emperor after all.
I mean, that was
I'm
pretty
not
much
entirely
inevitable.
convinced of that,
I
actually.
mean, that's, yeah.
But yeah, so some bad things are probably happening in Garlemald.
And Elidibus is hanging out on the moon again, like he do.
I love seeing that guy so mad. That guy's so mad.
Ran off because he got punked by a mortal.
Yep.
With a fake echo.
Yeah.
I mean, that fake mortal wants to kill us because he thinks we're the one thing to challenge him, so it's probably not great for us.
I mean, he's not wrong about that part.
Sure.
I think we can take him.
We'll
Again.
Yeah, except it's going to be a whole thing.
Especially if he's not being a dragon at the time. So also, upon finishing the main story quests, 2 side dungeons open. And boy, are they entertaining and introduce some
yeah.
interesting concepts.
I do enjoy Academia Anider, which is the weird botany garden of La Habrea.
This is where the Amarosians did their experiments and made critters and studied things that they had found. And it turns out that a lot of stuff that we were blaming the Allegans for, really we should be blaming the Amarosians for.
I mean, including the Allegan Empire.
But
let's be
also
clear.
because Emmett Silk, yeah. But Morbles, yeah, it's their fault.
Except for their mortals are worse.
Yeah. And also, at the very end, you see because it seems like you're going through the replay of what happened when a giant horrible monster broke loose. Said giant horrible monster is really loose, and apparently really broke loose just then. It's complicated and confusing. But at the very end, the final boss is created when an Amarosian sacrifices himself to summon the Guardian Force Quetzalcoatl, which is straight out of FF8.
It's a hint of things to come. It's absolutely straight out of FF8.
And then the other side dungeon is going back to the Crystal Tower, but it's the Crystal Tower from the future. And this time we're going down. And we get to see exactly what incredibly bad decisions the Ironworks made to make this thing travel through time and space.
Because, hey, we knew something that traveled through time, and we knew something that traveled through space.
Yep.
What if you combine those two things?
And then slapped the Ironworks decal all over it.
So we have this weird Omega Alexander amalgam. There's just
with a little coil thrown in for good measure.
Yeah. And then the music for the dungeon.
The music is a mashup of all of that, yes.
Yeah.
The music is amazing.
Like, it tells you exactly what you're going to be fighting at the end of this. A remix of Omega and Alexander. It also pays off the Boilmaster.
Yes. Yes. That silly item in the Omega raids.
Thanks, Nero.
That keeps on getting upgraded is finally upgraded. It's like the
First
144
shows up
V144.
something like that. It first shows up right after Nero, because Nero talks about how great their kettle is. Nero's like, I gotta get a better one. And then I think like either the same patch or the next patch, he shows up with one.
His
And
kettle.
then throughout the Omega raids, it just
keeps on
keeps
getting upgraded.
escalating
Yeah. Because Nero and Sid are arguing about the kettle.
frequently.
And so apparently for the next 100 years, it kept being upgraded. And
I suspect at some point it started self-upgrading.
Yeah, probably.
Now it's the Mark 144 Thermocoil Boil Buster.
And it'll kick your ass.
Well, making coffee.
It's one of my least favorite fights to tank.
Oh yeah,
It's an awful fight to be a melee on.
Those things are super annoying.
Like, it got easier once I realized, I need to just keep dragging it back to the center, because it was super easy to get yourself, like, stuck in a corner that you couldn't ever get out of.
I mean, better to just eat one than cause a time paradox.
So true.
So there's that. And then Reen has a brilliant idea.
This is Reen's world. She would really like it to be fixed. So she sensed something way out in the empty, which is real creepy, I might add.
It's reminiscent of the burn.
Yeah.
Like, which makes sense. The burn was created by just the removal of ether. The empty was created by the stilling of ether. It makes sense the end result would be similar.
So you load up your car.
Your fantastic car.
You go on a road trip.
With Thancred and Urianger.
Oh god. And find these crazy ruins, or you think they're ruins, in the middle of this, like, ether desert, which is Eden. A giant ship.
Yep. Big flying saucer-looking thing. Again, straight out of Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah. And you deal with its guardian. It's a thing. Launches you into the center of the galaxy. It's fine. And turns out Reen can control it, or at least can interface with it in some meaningful way.
I guess being the Oracle of Light is important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And apparently its thing is it's able to, like, affect the balance of ether.
Yeah, it can rebalance ether, or unbalance ether, depending. And correct me if I'm wrong, this seems to be the thing that triggered the flood to begin with by unbalancing ether super badly.
Apparently.
Yes, that's what they have told us.
Doesn't mean it's true, but as far as we know so far, yeah.
And so the idea seems to be, hey, let's get this thing to, maybe we can fix the whole world with this. You're briefly interrupted by some crazy thing attacking the ship with a person in tow.
A crazy void scent thing.
Surely the person attacking the ship with a crazy void scent carrying them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Note, we haven't really seen any void scent here. Like, people don't know what void scent are on this world.
Yeah. We see void scent. That's weird. Probably shouldn't be here. And what are they doing out here anyway? Nobody really knows. I'm sure it won't be that important. Because we've got a job to do. We're going to bring back the ether.
Which means we need to re-aspect the ether back into the elemental aspects that it should have. So, like, fire, water, air, all that stuff.
Yeah. And this is where the terrible ideas begin. Because, okay, we're going to grab and re-aspect just a whole bunch of ether. But if that ether is just released, it could cause another flood. / a bunch of other really bad things that could happen.
Like an actual flood, or, a firestorm, or various other elemental things that we don't want.
Yeah, like a calamity. Because there's a lot of light ether that we've got to turn into something else. So, we think, foolishly, what if we consolidated all of that ether into something coherent? Such that it could be such that it could be like better subdued and controlled.
Yeah.
Possibly, at this point, you might be familiar with other times that a large amount of ether is crystallized into something.
Yeah, it's when we summon stuff.
Well,
It's not we.
when the beast tribes summon things.
It's like all of which tend to have like elemental aspects.
Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh yeah, cool. Let's just summon our own primal. That's fine.
Let's just create primals of the appropriate elements and then kill them.
So I haven't actually done this, but I'm kind of understanding. I am curious. Do we have a large source of crystals, or are we relying on the fact that we are Asians?
We are
neither.
neither. We're drawing all of the necessary ether via Eden.
Yeah, Green is using Eden to manage that portion.
Yeah, basically draw and create a whole bunch of the right kind of ether for it.
And we're in charge of the remembering what primals look like part of this. We're really bad at our job.
Yeah, we don't have a great memory. It turns out we've taken a few too many hits.
We've also fought a lot of different bosses, and we maybe got pieces of them mixed up.
Yeah. So, like, the first one's water. Let's start with water. That's a reasonable start. So yeah, we can remember a water primal, right? Like, we fought Leviathan.
Yeah.
There was like the 2 bits. There's like 2 bits that you fight. That's definitely, there were 2 somethings. That was a thing.
There were some Sahagins.
And like falling off the side, that was a problem.
Thankfully, this doesn't have any ads in that, right?
Yeah.
And man, that boat thing we were on, like, it's so good that didn't just like fall out from underneath us, because that would have been really wait.
Something about stray thoughts and.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, congratulations,
anyway.
We just made the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
So we make
this version of Leviathan.
We make this version of Leviathan, which has 2 heads, blasts giant jets of water across the stage,
and has that stupid thing that Shinryu did, where parts of the stage disappear.
Yeah, and then we'll like break parts of the stage out from underneath us.
We may have gotten some of our dragons confused.
Yeah, we fight that thing, and inexplicably it works. We managed to like
bring back water.
Re-aspect a bunch of water in this desert, and like it's not great, but there's water there and not crystallized light. And so Rena's like, oh, that was great. This was great. This worked fantastically. There's no downside here. What we should do is we should fix things so that stuff can start to grow, and it doesn't need to just be just stagnant water, because if we leave it too long, it'll probably not be good. So let's get some like stuff going on. Let's re-aspect Earth. That's the best one to do next.
Something falling off ledges.
You have no idea.
The landslides.
Yeah.
Apparently, at some point, we decided that Titan can turn into a truck.
Yeah, I don't know what
Somehow
happened
we
there.
got Titan confused with the second boss of Oma Castle, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's turbo landslides and also becomes a lawnmower for some reason. Titan. I hear the extreme version of this also has "Don't Talk to My Son or I Ever Again," with a much bigger
the extreme
Titan.
version also has a bigger Titan and a smaller Titan at the same time, because Titan had some sort of ads that you fought at the same time that also used landslides, right?
Yeah.
I definitely don't remember them using landslides.
It's because you have to kill them very quickly so they don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, if you don't kill them fast enough, it's bad times.
You thought 5 landslides was too many. Try 7.
It's the whole thing.
Anyway, yes, in the extreme version of the first Titan, you kill them very quickly so that doesn't happen.
But yeah, so we've got like Titan as designed by Ed Roth, and I don't know.
Crazy dual-headed snake Leviathan. They're really cool fights. They're shockingly bad ideas. It's going to get real weird when we get to ice.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be awkward. I mean, lightning is also probably going to be pretty weird.
It's gonna have great music.
What is the aspect of a Moogle Mog?
I don't know.
Light.
Annoyance?
So we probably won't have very stupid Moogle because there's already too much light, unless we need to rebalance light, which we might have to.
We might need to bring in some
there
dark.
There are only 4 elements left.
Those.
Definitely 8 bosses left in the series, at least.
Yeah. I mean, some of them will presumably be related to the girl that, showed up with the Void Scent and all of that.
Thanks to FanFest, we actually already know who she is.
Yeah,
the game
she's
doesn't tell
the
you.
girl with the hammer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The girl with the hammer?
Name is Gaia. It was designed by
Nomura.
Nomura.
Yeah. Because they showed off her character design. She's got a big old hammer.
All right. Seems reasonable.
But yeah, I mean, my guess is they'll probably continue with 2 fights from each of the remaining 2 sets being primals, and the other 2 will be, I don't know.
Their options are pretty open.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight terrible Shiva dragon.
Maybe we'll get to fight Final Fantasy 15 Ifrit.
Hmm.
I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, no thanks.
But yeah, I'm really excited about where they go next with it, because it's an interesting follow-on to the main story, and I feel like the previous raids have been so tangential to the main story that I find it, like, even if the stories are interesting, I find it a little bit hard to get invested. Whereas this one, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm very interested in where this goes because it directly ties into everything we've been doing.
Which, admittedly, was part of the reason why Coil was so interested.
Yeah.
Is it tied into the actual story. Or more so, told you what happened between, 1 and A Realm Reborn.
Yeah, it filled in the gap for you.
In a really cool way.
Similar to... So, I really liked the end of this expansion, and like the whole reveal about your character felt to me the same way I felt when like they did the big reveal in Warframe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like that they finally paid off, sort of like they explain so much about this game, but they had been not really explaining what's up with you.
Yeah. And now it's like, okay, now that you know, what do you do about it?
I mean,
They're
ensuring that Hydaelyn remains in power seems important. Like, Hydaelyn remains to protect all of the others, continuing to shepherd these worlds, prevent calamities. Like, I mean, your job still seems roughly the same. You just know why you're doing it. And you also have a deeper connection to your motivation for doing it, because you've always been doing this. Like, you are the progenitor of ensuring that all of these worlds are safe.
Which is super cool.
You wonder if we're going to be using this whole Crystal Tower nonsense to do some of the other worlds.
Nip around to some of the other worlds.
Maybe.
I hope so. Like, I want to go to both the one that was lost and the ones that are seemingly doing okay, because I just want to see how the rest of the world's like. Or the rest of the, I don't know, Crystalverse.
I want to see some more of the map that we still haven't seen.
Yeah, like on the source.
Yeah.
There's all of Thavnair and all of Islabard, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The entire new world.
Also that.
I give this game so much credit for, they explained some really big, like, world-defining stuff, and the end result is I want to see more. Like, it opens up a whole bunch of... I've talked a bunch about, like, really, really great world building makes you want to go and peek in all the corners, as opposed to narrowing what the realm of possibility is. And, like, this... I'm super interested in what else is going on and what else we can be involved in. I really want to know what happens next. In a way that I'm not sure that I have in a lot of the previous ones, the previous expansions. It's been like, okay, cool, I've gotten to the end of the story. All right, we're going to meander a bit until we get to something I care about again. Whereas here I'm like, oh no, I'm raring for whatever the next story batch is. I
feel like Heaven's Ward did a better job of that than Stormblood did.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't remember feeling that drive in Heaven's Word quite as much.
Well, I think we sufficiently covered Shadowbringers at this point. Like, it took 2 full episodes and like 2 packed episodes.
I mean, there's a lot of story in there.
It's a really good expansion.
And I think they've given us some tantalizing options for where we're going next, but I also don't necessarily think I know where we're going next.
I love that feeling. This expansion did a really good job of both surprising me and delivering on things that I expected. Because like just because I saw it coming doesn't mean it's not still done super well. And some of the stuff that they surprised me with was amazing. I would never in a million years have guessed we are most of an ASEAN.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're so strong. And that's That's really neat. I also really wonder what happened before we woke up in a cart. Because I suspect somebody knows. I don't think it's like...
Probably isn't that merchant.
Well, it's certainly not that merchant. No, that guy has no idea.
But it is suspicious that we were there with the Levier twins.
Well, it's suspicious that we sort of pop in out of nowhere. But it's okay.
I mean, isn't part of the story that we're supposed to be kind of from 1.0 and we just sort of bipped out of existence?
Only if we actually
Not
played
if
in
you-
1.0.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably in 1.0 were you also, like, was Heidelin also a thing?
Yes. The Echo is a concept from 1.0.
I mean, it kind of... That's the other thing, is everyone with the Echo just people who are former Asians? Or former Amarosians?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. There's certainly people that seem to have, like, their mirror counterparts across the world. And, like, maybe we could have a super crafter. Or a super mafia boss. Maybe let's not have that second one.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I mean, Rowena's totally promised to stab us in the front if it comes to it.
Yeah, it's true. She's completely honest about being in it for the money.
And I think on that note, we should probably wrap it up.
Join
Hopefully.
us next week when we
Yes,
probably
somewhat
talk-
more varied topics. Probably. Actually, probably not.
No,
Probably-
It'll probably be
Probably.
one topic.
Yep.
It might be two. It might be PAX, Rundown, and also Classic WoW.
yeah, something like that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
See ya!
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.